The I Ching is a collection of 64 images or hexagrams, which tell about the different stages or changes in life. Hexagram 39 is, again, the hexagram of impasse or obstruction. It's literally like being between a rock and a hard place. Because the reality is that's life. There's no getting around the fact that we face these tight, difficult moments, and that's part of life's process. That's part of how we are challenged. It's part of how we grow. Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Woven Wings Live, where we bring you wisdom and tools for vibrant living. I am your host, Gabe Crane, and usually I am joined by my co-host, Rahul Deepwania, but this is a special episode today where I'm excited to share some different updates about what's going on with our project, also some exciting life news for Rahul. Maybe I will just cut straight to the chase with that. My co-host Rahul, amazing friend, former client of mine, is a dad. He's a new dad. And so this is a congratulations to Kirti, his beautiful partner, and him on their new development in their life. And so as a result, Rahul is a little bit busy right now. And so I'm making an episode for our podcast on my own. This is a little bit scary on the one hand, and it's also exciting. It's actually something that Rahul and I have been talking about for some time as far as the opportunity to evolve and develop our show. And I think just to go back to the origins of what is this show about, we talk about providing wisdom and tools for vibrant living. So, our purpose is really to explore and share wisdom traditions, whether that is ancient traditions in Western religions or in Eastern traditions like Taoism and Buddhism, or looking at modern practices like psychology, interpersonal skills that allow us to uplift our lives, that allow us to understand ourselves and life better and live more fulfilled experiences in our day-to-day lives and with the people that we care about and love. As we've gotten into the project, we have fallen into our routines. We usually have a guest on the show. For anyone who's followed the show, we usually have somebody who joins us, who shares about their wisdom, which is amazing. And we have beautiful conversations related with that. And at the same time, just that format, kind of has created, I think, a element of like a survey-oriented show where we're kind of sampling and tasting from a lot of different traditions and exploring their interconnections. But every episode is kind of a one-off where you hear about something and get to try it on. And I think that's great for when you're in the process of exploring life and wanting to do some window shopping in a way, wanting to try out some different things. But one of the limitations in that, which Rahul and I have talked about often, is that we don't get that much of an opportunity on this show to dig deeper. Originally this show comes as an outgrowth of my coaching business, my coaching and Qigong teaching business called Woven Wings, hence our name Woven Wings Live. But really in these episodes, we have not really gotten a chance to dive too deeply into those practices and tool sets, except when we perhaps have a guest from those traditions on the show, which we have had a couple times. And so all that is coming to bear on the fact that Rahul right now is needing to take some time to transition into this new amazing role he's playing in life. And as they say in the theater business, the show must go on. And so this is an opportunity, I think, for us to start to imagine this show in a little bit of a different way. And we'll see where it goes and evolves, and it could change again. And perhaps in the coming months, as Rahul is adjusted, he may come back onto the show. But for right now, we are flying solo on this show. And while I'm very much looking forward to continuing having guests on our podcast, I wanted to take today as a novel opportunity. We've never really done this. I've never just made an episode for you guys just as myself, and Rahul's never done that either. Just to, share and relate a little bit more authentically and personally from my own life and how I'm applying my own practices into my own personal growth and the work that I'm doing on myself. And so I'm a little nervous about that, but also excited. And, we'll see where that leads us. But I think this could become a bit of an evolving model for our show. Um, and the show itself will continue to evolve. There's some ideas that are percolating and bubbling inside me too, just around our orientation, perhaps even our name. And if you stick around to the end of the show, maybe I'll tease a little bit ideas around that and see if you want to offer us any feedback about what you think resonates and would work well. Okay, so if you're still with us, thanks for joining in, and I'm really excited to share with you a little bit today about my own personal journey, what I'm working with, and how that's come up in some of the clients that I'm working with right now, and some of the traditions that links into. So I guess to start with, just to lay a little bit of background, my master's is in psychology. I'm a professional coach. And I also am trained in a Eastern-based, Qigong-based system that works on cultivating the overall life. And that system is called Ren Shui. This is my teacher credential there in the back corner. And this is a system which is really interesting. I've gotten to study a lot of healing and wisdom traditions in my life, and for all sorts of different reasons, this system is the one that has stuck. And not that I don't also connect with and practice other traditions, but I just continue to be drawn to the resources of Ren Shui and be supported by what it has to offer. And so within that context, I work on myself, and I work with clients that work with me from around the world. And one of the key principles in Ren Shui is this motto, which is Zi Du, Du Ren. And that translates as help yourself, help others. And this is not a knock on the Western psychotherapy tradition, which I think has a lot of really great understanding and knowledge. And that's a topic for another time as well, to explore those intersections. But one of the things that I think often comes up in the classic Western therapeutic model is like the healing, the work is about the client, right? It's not about the therapist. The therapist is there almost as a mirror, a blank canvas, a wall that provides a kind of reflection back to the client that allows for the client to grow in ways that they wouldn't otherwise be able to. And there's certainly a lot of value in that kind of mirroring, but I think that in a certain way, it's also disingenuous because no one is a mirror unto themselves. Everyone, as far as I understand, on this planet is a human being. And we all have subjective experiences, and we're also all in our own processes of evolution and growth. And so in the Ren Shui model and this motto of Zi Du Du Ren, help yourself, help others, it's really understood that, when I, as a practitioner, am helping my client, I'm also being helped. And so this is always one of the first things that I share with clients when we're starting out work together is like, hey, I know that you're my client. I know there's like a power dynamic involved here because I'm your coach, quote unquote. I'm the expert. You're paying me for my resources and knowledge and tools. But I just want you to know that alongside that, all of that stuff is true and it exists. But I am also growing and learning through this experience. I'm also fallible. I can make mistakes. And more than a right or wrong, he's making mistakes, he's not making mistakes. It's more that through your experience as the client and through my process supporting you in your journey, I'm also receiving reflections, right? So that mirror that I was talking about in that therapy model, right? It's not a one-way mirror. It's a two-way mirror, right? It's also giving me back reflections about things that are going on in my own life and where I can next turn in our ongoing, never-ending process of evolution and growth of what it is to be human. So that all is a way of introduction to stories that I want to share with y'all today. I have a client of mine who is a startup founder runs a fairly large startup in California. And I recently had a session with him where he was relaying to me the challenges he's facing in his business, especially dealing with the uncertain economic circumstances we're in right now. A lot of his business is offshore. It's based in China, and so what's going on with tariffs creates a lot of uncertainty for his business. And yet at the same time, he's driven to do a lot of things to try to improve the situation, but he's not really, there's always things that he can do, but there's kind of comes to a point where there's not that much to do. There are things that are out of his control and he has to wait. And one of the things that we work with that I work with a lot personally, and I work with this client in particular, is the I Ching, which is the ancient Chinese book of changes. Kind of comes from the same Taoist, Buddhist, Confucianist context and background that Ren Shui also comes from. So I enjoy working with I Ching because it's a tool, it's a book of wisdom, and it's a way to apply all these different teachings into the actual lived experience of day-to-day life. And there's a lot I'll share on I Ching, perhaps some in this episode and ongoing. But my client relayed to me in this session we had, that he consulted the I Ching and he came up with Hexagram 39. And the I Ching is a collection of 64 images or hexagrams, which tell about the different stages or changes in life. And so he came upon Hexagram 39. Hexagram 39 is the hexagram of impasse or obstruction. And I'm getting a little bit of goosebumps just telling the story now. I got a lot of goosebumps when I was talking with him in the session because, as I told him, that's crazy that you got that hexagram, because I've been working with that hexagram a lot recently. I've also been getting that hexagram, and in no small part, I'm sure, because I recently turned 39 years old. And so I found myself reflecting on the nature of this hexagram. And so it felt very synchronistic and an opportunity to, again, do that kind of mutual exchange process that I was describing in Zidu Du Ren. It's like, okay, my client is encountering this hexagram, but actually it's also me encountering this hexagram too at the same time, right? And so I was able to share with him, based on my own experience working with it, which is an ongoing exploration, and even creating this video, I would say for you guys, is a continuation of that process. But what is Hexagram 39? Hexagram 39 is, again, the hexagram of impasse or obstruction. It's literally like being between a rock and a hard place. And the I Ching speaks in these different images that express themselves within these hexagrams. So here you have a mountain and a river. So you have a big, tall, impassable mountain behind you, and you have a great body of water in front of you that you cannot pass. Okay, and so the image is of being stuck and really being kind of frozen in that place. It doesn't appear like there is an easy outcome or solution. And at the same time, what's interesting is if you kind of look ahead, hexagram 40 in the I Ching is the hexagram of deliverance. And it's actually hexagram 39 tossed on its head and now upside down. And there you have the image of someone, the eldest brother, the thunder, the superior individual, fording the river, having crossed across the danger. And so we're given this kind of image of like, somehow we go from being stuck at the impasse to transcending it, to fording the river, to going beyond the difficulty. And what I share with my client is like, that's basically where I feel like I'm at in my life in a major way. I'm just turned 39 years old. I'm still in the process of finalizing a divorce from my partner and the mother of my child, who's here here in the corner also. And there's a lot of difficulty associated with that. And not just that, but, I think maybe it's a little early for it, but I think people around my age, we come into contact with that kind of sense of midlife, the midlife crisis, right? Like, did life turn out? Is it turning out the way that I expected it to, or I wanted it to? Am I happy with that? Do I need to do something to change that? Um, and so, in all of these ways, I've just felt this impasse building in my own life. Another way that it comes up for me too is in the desire for fulfillment or for recognition. The idea that, I've done X or Y. I wish I was known for that. I wish I was seen more fully for that. And why is that not happening? And feeling stuck, right? And so this is this is just the unvarnished, experiences that I'm personally going through. But I was able to share in that experience with my client. We had a shared, different circumstances. My client's not 39 years old. He's in a different spot in his life, but he did recently become a father. And I think part of the experience of uh, this hexagram can be likened to that, not just fatherhood, but parenting. When you are in that middle generation, suddenly your life is not really your own anymore fully, right? Your life is for your kids. Your life is starting to transition towards caretaking for your parents as they're getting older. Uh, it's your job to be in the broad middle, to hold up the house, to be the head of household, to make things turn over and continue and work. And, there's a lot of honor and reward in that journey and experience. But I think for many of us, it's hard, right? It's also can feel thankless. It can feel overwhelming. It can feel like we don't have enough time in the day, we don't have enough energy in our body, and even despite all of that, we're nowhere close to where we wanted to be, with our fantasies and dreams that we had as children or teenagers. We don't have the money or the car or the partner or the life. When we get into this negative frame of thinking, that's how the world can seem. And so what do we do, right? Um, with my client, he's sharing about trying to sleep train his child and being so exhausted, and the conflicts coming up out of that exhaustion with his partner and all of this stuff that's going on. And so we really need to look at this closely from a place of insight and wisdom, responsibility. We need to be able to have some sort of effective way of dealing with this situation. Because the reality is that's life. There's no getting around the fact that we face these tight, difficult moments, and that's part of life's process. That's part of how we are challenged. That's part of how we grow. And it's funny because when I was first receiving that hexagram and starting to encounter it, and this is several months ago, and I'm 38 years old, and I'm starting to imagine and identify that hexagram 39 and 39 is coming up as my number. There's just this part of me, which I think many of you could probably relate to, if not all of us, which is just like, I don't want to do that. Like, really? Cause I don't want to be stuck at an impasse. Can I just move along? Can we skip that part and go to the deliverance? I love hexagram 40. It's so nice. Oh, deliverance, you're free. So there's a resistance, right? There's a resistance to actually being with the stuckness, to being with the difficulty. And that's kind of the first brush of this situation. Um, but when we look at what the I Ching counsels for us in dealing with this hexagram, it's really amazing. What it really basically says, it kind of says it over and over again as you go through these 6 lines of the image, these 6 changing lines. But it basically says that going leads to obstruction and coming leads to return. different versions of that. Going leads to obstruction. In coming, great friends arrive and care for you. So, what is going and coming, right? Going is a more external orientation. It's the idea that, okay, I'm stuck between this rock and this hard place, this mountain and this body of water. I need to build a boat to get across the water, or I need to fashion a rope for rock climbing so I can scale the mountain, and that way I'll escape externally. I will go somewhere. The I Ching says, no, it doesn't work like that. If you want to escape the difficulties, then you need to come, you need to return to yourself. You need to turn inward to your inner resources to understand the situation better and see through your inner understanding the way through and out of the difficulty. Okay, so that's a big, it's a very simple teaching, but it's a big teaching. And it reflects a lot of some of the foundational concepts that are present in Ren Shui and in I Ching, in Eastern traditions. But I would argue also that they're present in most of our Western religions too, and in our modern traditions of psychology, that the way out is within. Okay, so that actually the solution to most of our problems is actually on the inside. And this doesn't mean that there aren't, this is one of 64 images, okay? So in the I Ching. So it's not that there isn't a need for things to take place on the outside also, but so often, we mix up and confuse those two dimensions. We want something to change on the outside when what really needs to change or will directly contribute to our enlightenment or to our happiness or to our health is our own inner understanding of the situation to begin with. So, going leads to obstruction, coming leads to great good fortune. Is the problem with my job, my partner, where I live, how much money I make? Or is my problem with how I'm relating with myself and my own understanding of myself, my own expectations for life, my own unresolved resentments and anger and grief that I might not have been open to or known how to process or been willing to process before? And am I ready and willing to turn around and face the music, face the scary monster, be present to the reality of what's driving my perceptions and my inner experience? Okay, and so that's really the idea here. It's the gift, is that, okay, instead of trying to escape the conditions of that impasse, what is the gift that it's offering to us? And ultimately, what I think it's offering to us is the chance to grow. It's offering us the chance to look at, what am I doing and how can I uplift myself from the inside out? And through that, be nourished, be empowered. And yeah, is it difficult? Sure. Is it not easy? For sure. But is it rewarding also by the same measure? Absolutely. And so when I'm talking with my client, and we were talking about sleep training and the challenges of his circumstance, his position, but what my client came to recognize is like, okay, wait a minute. So if I'm getting so frustrated with my few-month-old daughter who is just trying to make their way in the world because she's not getting sleep trained as quickly as I would like, or whatever it is. And I'm trying to put her onto a regimen and a program. And on the one hand, on the surface, and it's like, it's very understandable that it's like frustrating. Like, if anyone's been in that shoe, like I've been in that position, with my son, it's like, you're sleep deprived, you're exhausted, like it's hard, it sucks, right? And so it makes all the sense in the world to be upset and frustrated, and then it also makes sense that your partner is upset and frustrated, and it makes sense that conflict can come about. But at the same time, if we're not conscious and aware of that, it might be understandable, but it's not necessarily, I guess, justified, I would say, or the best case outcome if out of that frustration or that sleep deprivation, we end up being, uh, you know, emotionally unavailable or explosive towards our partner or towards our child, or those frustrations come out in other circumstances to our peers at work or to our friends who have nothing to do with the situation, right? So, though it's understandable, we need to find a way to uh, be able to relate with the situation in a healthy way and come up with a better solution. And in the I Ching, they refer to that as the way of the superior man, the way to make sense of and turn every circumstance to your advantage. And so, as we reflected on that, what my client was able to recognize is like, well, okay, if I'm going to ask my 4-month-old daughter, who's a newborn, to go onto a program, a sleep training program, then I need to also put myself onto some kind of program, right? Like I need to, if I'm asking something of somebody else, I need to embody that myself. Okay, I need to start to apply those same teachings and principles to myself, and I need to hold myself to certain standard if I'm going to be able to convey anything with authenticity and integrity to somebody who's my dependent, somebody who's relying on me. Okay, so this again tracks back to this idea of taking the inner route. What are we asking of the outside world? Is that something that we are asking of ourselves? And we can't really ask anything of others that we're not ready and willing to take on ourselves. So, uh, sometimes kind of bitter medicine. There's all sorts of circumstances, and I know some of them very intimately, I have to say, where it's like, it really feels like it's not about me. It's about some other person or a situation. And again, it's not to say that other people don't have their own things going on. But ultimately, if we want to walk the path of the superior individual, if we want to, not for the sake of being better, but if we want to experience happiness and joy and health in our life, then we got to take that personal responsibility. We have to look at and embrace the realities of where we are getting triggered, where we are hurt, where we are not acting out of our best selves, and we have to be willing to look at ourselves and course correct as we become aware. So that's that. I wanted to share just, in my own personal life. So right now I'm working on some writing and a book just about the last few years of my life, kind of a self-help memoir book. But as I've been working on that, I live out here in Maui, and I spend every week, uh, I post on this on social media. You might have seen some of my posts there about it, but I work with drug and alcohol addiction recovery clients in this beautiful, sacred, and history laden valley here in Maui, which is called Iao Valley. There's a beautiful partnership that I was lucky to be able to help bring together between Aloha House, which is a recovery center here on Maui, and the Maui Zen Dojo, which is a Zen organization who owns a piece of property in Iao Valley. They agreed to bring the Aloha House group together to the Zen Dojo property and have me facilitate some teachings for them. So every Thursday, I'm up there alongside this sacred river. If you want to research Iao Valley, you can look it up. There was a big battle in the unification of the Hawaiian Islands between Kamehameha and Keakili, who was the chief of Maui. And so there are a lot of history, feelings. It's a deep place. And it also is an ancient volcanic caldera that's turned into this epic rainforest that is home to some of the wettest places on Earth. It's raining there almost every day. It's lush and green, and there is an amazing river that is bubbling out of the mountainside and running down through that valley. We do this class alongside it. And in the process of teaching this class, I've gotten exposed to a lot more Hawaiian culture. Some of the clients who have come through have shared their mana'o, or their knowledge, their thoughts, and it's been beautiful. I've gotten to learn so much through that process. Um, and as part of that, folks have shared more about the history of this great battle that I was just describing in the battle for the unification of Hawaii that happened there in Iao Valley. And as part of that battle, there is a high ridge at the back of this valley that leads out to the west side of the island. It leads out towards Lahaina and Olowalu. Folks who haven't been to Maui may have heard of Lahaina because recently we suffered through the fires that took place there. But there's a high ridge back there that the chief's son, and I think the queen, or some collection of folks, were able to retreat from Kamehameha, who came with all his soldiers and warriors and also Western cannons. They were able to escape out the back of this valley over this pass. And I keep hearing this story, and also just getting introduced along the way to things that I really appreciate, like just learning about traditional ways here in Hawaii of giving thanks, of making offerings, and just continuing to have this class every week underneath this kukui nut tree there on this beautiful property. And as time goes on, and as you know, this kind of process of getting older, this aging process never ends, and I get closer to turning 39, I keep looking out and seeing this ridge that I've heard in the stories that supposedly they escaped through. And I start doing some research online, and there's different things that I hear that, you know, you can, some people say you can hike it, and some people have hiked it, and other people tell me things like, no, no one's hiked that for forever. It's not safe at all. You can't do it. And so as I'm just exploring and being present with this this idea of the impasse, the obstruction, that ridge has come to kind of symbolize that for me. And just, you know, just this idea of like, wow, that's the hump that I'm trying to get over. And seeing that in so many different places, like that is the external representation of what I'm trying to overcome. But what is it inside that I'm really working on? I'm working on my own stubbornness, you know, my own sense of like hiding myself from myself, or especially when there are parts of me that I don't like, or that other people see that they don't like, and they try to reflect that back to me. My stubbornness, my denial, my hiding from examining and coming to terms with those parts so that I can learn something from them and get better. Um, so I'm would love to get more into detail about that. I don't know if I'd say I'd love to. Who loves to kind of like bear it all out for everyone? But I think I would like to get more into that in more detail another time when it's a little bit more appropriate. Um, but suffice to say, there's a lot that I realized that I'm working on, you know, that I can grow in, which is obvious, right? I think if you're watching this video, you could be like, well, obviously, dude, like everybody has something to work on and grow in. But maybe this is also relatable to you. We have all these ways, or I have all these ways of, you know, distorting and deceiving myself, and placing the blame externally on other people, and thinking that it is not my problem, but it's other people's problem. And you know what? It might be other people's problem, but the reality is like pretty much always, like even if it's something else that's going on externally with somebody else, there's an element that's being offered to us as an opportunity to learn something and grow. And that's kind of the perpetual journey of life cultivation and growth. It's like, well, what are we getting the opportunity to transform? And so for me, I've just been working a lot on being more and more open to that, or see where I'm closed off and see if I can pry that door open a little bit. So, all of that's to say is that I'm 39 now, and in this coming year, uh, I am looking at crossing over that ridge, and I'm exploring doing that in the flesh, physically, in this world, and then really underneath, it's what does that really mean inside? What am I overcoming inside myself? And so, if that resonates for you, I just want to invite you into the journey along with me for that, wherever you are in the world, whatever it is, your impasse, your obstruction, that you can do it, you can face it, we can face it together, each in our own way, but that there are others out there that are doing that work. And when we explore, it's really amazing when we are open, when we turn towards ourselves with a sense of willingness and curiosity, and we soften our heart to be able to receive that. Then the heart can move mountains, which is appropriate for our metaphor, right? So as I've been exploring uh, this journey on the outside, as I said, I've met a lot of people who are like, that's crazy, you shouldn't do that. And then I've met people who have done it. And I've met people who have indicated like a willingness maybe to take me. I've also met people who have knowledge and wisdom to share about ways to approach that journey that are in keeping with the traditions of this place, the protocols, the spirits, which is an amazing gift for making that journey itself and for just having that knowledge in general in my life, being able to experience it myself and share it with other people. And then, uh, that's on the outside. And so on the inside, I'm trying to take the time to really sense into what that journey is about and open to it more and more over time. And I won't belabor that point because I think I've shared a good amount about it right now. But just to describe a little more of what that looks like, instead of taking this on as this grand challenge that I'm trying to get done as fast as I can, I'm actually really trying to take my time. So the idea is not to, again, get over this impasse or escape right away, but it's actually to savor it, to really connect with it and take my time. So it's actually this whole year that I'm thinking, my goal is to try to cross that mountain before the end of this year, by the time I turn 40. And as part of that journey, rather than trying to take this hike, this trek in one go, I'm going in the steps that feel natural every day. I'm taking times to, after my class on Thursday, to explore that valley a little bit more, to go up to some places that I've never been before, with no intention or rush to cross that mountain, but just to actually get in there, to feel, to connect, to listen, to practice Qigong, to be open, to make an offering, and to also explore the mountain from the other side, from the backside, and do the same. And so, in that same way, if this resonates with you, I just want to invite you to explore what in your own life you might like to come a little bit closer to and explore a bit and give ample, luxurious time to allow to transform into learning and vitality and health and joy in your own life. Okay, so if you like, check out the I Ching. Read a little bit more about Hexagram 39, Hexagram 40. Curious what you guys think about this new format for the show. Again, it won't always be me. We will have guests on the show, but really interested to hear any feedback, encouragement, critical feedback that you might have. I really welcome it. And then, maybe it's just like a last teaser in keeping with the kind of transitions in the format. There's a project that I have been working on developing for a while in the background of my business, maybe as a nonprofit enterprise. And it's had some different names over the years, but what I'm calling it right now is Center to Center. And so I'm thinking about transitioning this podcast from Woven Wings Live to be called Center to Center. And I'm curious how that resonates for you. It feels good to share and say. And there's so much in that phrase and in that name. We can break it down another time, perhaps. But yeah, just a few things to consider and engage with me about if you feel so called. So, on that note, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope this was helpful for you. There's a lot more I'd like to say about I Ching, especially as it relates to other systems that are out there, like gene keys and human design. So maybe that's a topic for another time. But in the meantime, I'm really wishing you well on your own journey of life cultivation, whatever form that takes, and just urging you to have that authentic turn to look at yourself openly, with love, honestly, and turn towards the impasse. Just remember, going leads to obstruction, coming leads to great returns. Okay, and great good fortune. So thanks so much for joining us. I'll talk to you next time, and we'll see you out there.